church has always been an environment where we cover up and certain conversations are taboo to talk about. Beyond the Platform is going to be a safe place where we air it out and discuss things that many don't want to discuss but are necessary. But I do need to make one thing clear. This is not church. We're going beyond the platform. We're going to talk about it all. I hope you guys are ready. What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to the Beyond the Platform podcast, the place we air out what many don't want to talk about. I'm your host, Dewan Kelker, and we are excited to be with you tonight for this broadcast of Beyond the Platform. I'm fairly new to the podcast community, so I would like to have your support. So if you can, go to YouTube or Facebook, look up Beyond the Platform podcast, like, share, and subscribe. It will be greatly appreciated. I'm going to randomly pick two people today. Whoever goes to YouTube, like, share, and subscribe, and comment with your Cash App. I'm going to bless two people with a $50 gift tonight. Okay. Hopefully y'all can hear me pretty well. We it's been a minute, so we may be having a couple technical difficulties. So if you can let us know if you can hear me well, the team will let us know so we can fix it. But if you can, go ahead, like, subscribe, and share as we get ready for this thing tonight. All right. Tonight, Beyond the Platform podcast is going to be airing on all platforms. So make sure you tune in and engage. With that being said, with tonight's podcast, you're going to be able to ask some questions, and we're going to take a few minutes at the end of the podcast to answer them the best we can. So get your questions submitted because we want you to engage. Tonight is special because we're going to be discussing what some people call taboo in the church. This topic is something that many consider to be sensitive in nature, only because because of where some of us come from, they don't consider this to be an issue. Tonight, we're going to tackle the topic of mental health. All right. With me tonight, I have an awesome woman of God who I've had the opportunity to meet not too long ago. I honestly feel that it was God's providential plan for us to meet. You'll learn about that later. But she is a licensed professional mental health counselor. She studied MA clinical mental health counseling at Ashton Theological Seminary. She is the founder and owner of the Healing Care Center in Euclid, Ohio. She's the author of an amazing must-read book entitled From Victim to Survivor, where she openly addresses her story of physical, sexual abuse, domestic violence, poverty, and rape. Awesome wife and mother of three, married to an awesome man of God, Pastor Mario Hauser, who's somewhere in the background right now, making sure he can get logged in. And together they shepherd the Village Church of Cleveland, Ohio. Her resume pretty much speaks for itself, but I consider it a privilege and an honor to introduce to some of you tonight, Courtney Hauser. How are you tonight, sis?
Hey, I'm doing good. I am super excited for us to just have this much needed conversation. So thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. Now, look, we've been planning this for a second. We threw it together real quick because we're doing something that's awesome, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later. But tonight, we are going to be discussing mental health in the Black church and the Black church. Mental health and the Black church. You'll understand in a second. Courtney and I have had an opportunity to partner and start an initiative called My Church. We're going to talk about it shortly, but I believe this is going to be a blessing to the church, and it's going to equip us to recognize and respond the right way to mental health in the church. Don't forget, again, to like, share, and subscribe and get your questions submitted because we want you guys to engage with us tonight. We're going to talk about a lot. But first, I want to hear a little bit about the path that got you here. Courtney, talk to us a little bit. What made you travel down this road of mental health awareness and education?
Yeah, so I actually get asked that question a lot. People are like, how did you get into mental health and trauma and all of that? And honestly, it started off with my own story. So I am one of eight, grew up in Cleveland, and I saw a lot in my family, right? So My dad, and let me say this before, I always like to put out this disclaimer when I talk about my family and my childhood. Let me say that my parents absolutely did the best they could with what they had and what they knew. And both of them are so much better and in a healed space, and we have a good relationship now. So let me put
Great.
that out there
Great.
as a disclaimer before I talk about some of the past stuff. Um, but growing up, my dad was on drugs and my mom was a single mom of 4. And so she was, doing the best that she could to try to make ends meet. But unfortunately, she ended up getting into a bad relationship that ended up being a domestic violence situation. And so we ended up having to leave that situation. And it was just crazy all the way around, right? But even in watching my mom, that wasn't the only woman in my family that I watched be physically abused. And so I started to realize a cycle and that it was a pattern for the women in my family to always be in these unhealthy, toxic relationships. And then unfortunately, it got passed down to me. So by the time I was about 15 years old, not only did I see the women in my family go through those situations, then I became, and I'm gonna identify as a victim in that situation. But
Okay.
I'll talk a little bit about my transition from a victim to a survivor to a thriver because there is a next piece.
Okay.
But I do believe it's important for us to identify as victims initially.
Okay.
And I'm gonna leave that
That's good.
initially
That's good.
there
That's good.
because we do have to heal through that process. So yeah, by the time I was 15, I not only saw it, but then I experienced it. I was in a domestic violence relationship as a teenager
Wow.
that really took a toll on me mentally, emotionally, and physically. I also was sexually abused by the time I was 15. I was physically abused by my mom's husband at that time. So I went through a lot. I saw a lot. I experienced a lot. And then I got saved.
All right.
And for me, like Jesus was my turning point for real,
Okay.
because there nobody in my family was saved. So when I met him, like I fell in love in a whole nother way because I had so much going on. And in doing that, I had already made up my mind like my life is not going to look like this cycle that had been passed down
That's good.
in my family. So when I met God, then I was like, "Okay, now I can actually do this." I didn't know how I was gonna do it. Like, I knew, like, okay, I wanna go to school, like, I wanna learn about what's happening in my family. So, in meeting Christ and going through a healing process myself, that led me to say, "Alright, boom, I gotta get some more education, like, I
Right.
gotta figure out why this keeps happening." So, I started taking psychology classes in high school. And so when I graduated, I went to college and I'm like, oh, I'm majoring in psychology. Like I need to understand
Right.
me. I need to
Right.
understand my family. And so that's where it started. And I continued to heal through the education aspect, through Christ, through going to therapy. And when I got to a certain space, I was like, I got to tell everybody I know. Like, and I went back home. Like, I always felt like if you get out the hood, you get out a certain space, you got to go back and like help people. And so, yeah, I initially started with just myself. And then I was like, let me go and share my process with other people. And really, it was my husband, Pastor Mario, who
Wow.
he was like, you should write a book. Like, you should really put it out there and tell people, be real, be raw, be honest with it. And so I did. And it's here.
All
It's
right.
called From Victim to Survivor.
All right.
And even on the back, it says, this is your turning point. And so, in writing this book, I go into a lot more detail about the things that I experienced. But at the end of each chapter, I talk about just some practical clinical ways that if somebody reading it has experienced this, and if you've ever gone through, you survived abuse, you need this book.
Wow.
You need
Okay.
it because at the end of each chapter, I go into just some practical steps that you can take to be able to heal through those same things that I went through. So yeah, it started with me
Okay.
in a nutshell.
Tell us a little bit. How can we get the book? How can we get the book? Tell them
So
that
the
real
book
quick.
is on Amazon. So from victim to survivor, then you would put in my name, Courtney Hauser. On Amazon, you can find it and get it shipped to you pretty quickly. But this is my baby,
Story,
my
huh?
first baby. This is my story. I am very open and honest and raw. I do want to put out trigger warnings for those who may read this and you're like, oh, it's a lot. A lot of people have told me it's so good they want to read it in one sitting.
Wow.
Other people are like, I had to take it in bits and pieces
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
stuff for them started coming up,
Right.
And I know that happens when you're reading somebody else's story. People can get triggered. So I do want to put that out there. But so many lives have been changed by this book. We've sold over 500 copies
Oh,
already.
wow.
And so women and honestly even men, because I know we don't talk about that aspect, that men have experienced abuse as well. But I've been a safe space for a lot of people, and so men have come and shared their stories with me too. And I know that again, that's more on the um kind of private side of things,
Right. Sure.
but men
But
have
it
gone through
happens. It
those same
happens, and we
things.
deal with that. Now, you said something. You said something that kind of jumped out to me. You said when you saw a lot of abuse in your
Mhm.
family, and you said something like that passed down to me. We understand from where we come from. That's a generational thing. That's a
Mhm.
generational curse. But some people who don't understand that explains what that means. That was passed down to you.
So from the clinical side or the spiritual side?
Either one.
Either
Either
one?
one.
Okay, so
Mhm.
Imma go clinical, right?
Mhm.
So, as children, right, we look to our parents and our environment to tell us who we are, what to do, how to act, how to interact with people, what our relationship should look like. So, if you grow up in a toxic or unhealthy environment, it's easy to normalize that, right?
Mhm.
So, a lot of people feel like calling each other names, yelling, screaming. Like if you grow up in that, when you get into a relationship, then you take that same thought process and you might talk crazy to the person that you're in a relationship with and not understand why they may not receive you the same way your family did because that was normal for your family. And so when there isn't an understanding behind it, then we continue to repeat the cycle over and over. So as a woman, if I talk crazy, if I seen my mom talk crazy to her man, then I get a man, I talk crazy to him, and then he got trauma issues and I'm triggering him. Now we triggering each other and we fighting and all this other stuff. And that continues to be the cycle. So it's really about the environment that you're raised in, unless someone who is healthy comes in and shows you a different way, then we tend to repeat whatever patterns that we saw our parents
Mhm.
repeat or our family members repeat.
And that's the and on the spiritual side is that's the generational curse that a lot of us deal with. Things get passed down through the bloodline spiritually,
Mhm.
and it's cyclical patterns of repeated behavior of what you saw, what you grew up in. We
Mhm.
can't choose our parents. We can't choose how the family we were born into. But what I love about this, about your story, is that you actually reversed the curse. It sounds like you reversed the
Listen.
curse. You saw everything that your family went through. You saw everything that
Mhm.
they went through, what they dealt with, and then you step in and you reverse the curse and you do go to school. You do fix it. And now you've totally transitioned that bloodline to where now you're starting a generational blessing of people who's going to follow up your
Mhm.
kids and your who's going to
Mhm.
follow after you
Mhm.
and do what you did. So when she said got passed down to her, we believe in generational curses. We believe that this stuff can travel through the bloodline. But
Mhm.
but you're a success story. You made it out of it. You
Man, by
wrote
the
about it.
grace of
So
God.
y'all make sure y'all get this book and read this book, and hear what she has to say, because I believe it will be life changing for a lot of us. All right, now the reason why we're here tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about this mental health thing, right? And the reason why I'm passionate about mental health in the Black church is because, like a little last year, a little over a year ago, I was asked to be, or let's just say the end of last year, I was asked to be in a panel on
Mhm.
the state of the Black church, and one of the questions was about mental health, and I began to reflect on the way I grew up. And we grew up Pentecostal, so I grew up Pentecostal. So
Mhm.
when it comes to the Pentecostal church, or that type of charismatic church, we believe in deliverance.
Absolutely.
And so uh sometimes I've always felt that the Black church didn't well, we had a problem with balance when it comes to deliverance. All right. And one of the questions that was asked on the panel, uh, they talked about with it being an increase of national awareness in mental health. How do you feel the Black church is keeping pace with it? Or how do you think the Black church is dealing with it? And I just kept it real with them. I said, I don't think we're good at all. I've never thought we could adequately support or help
Mhm.
people with mental health challenges because of our ignorance or inability to diagnose or differentiate between the
Mhm.
spiritual and the natural. We've always called mental health issues in the Black church a
A
demon.
demon. Yep, it's
You know,
demonic.
and that's scary because I learned through study that when Black people are experiencing mental health issues, anything like anxiety, depression, or substance abuse, or even addiction, right? Studies show that a high percentage of those people will go seek help from their leaders,
Mhm.
okay, even before a psychiatrist, a
Yep.
psychologist, or a therapist. And because of that, I believe we're forced, like I told you before when we first talked about this, I believe the leader then, because people trust us a lot, we're forced into this role of mental health specialists
Mhm.
without credentials to adequately assist these people. Let me ask you this, Courtney, and just answer this to how this comes out. Why do you think the Black church, especially our charismatic Black churches, sometimes attribute mental health to issues to demonic possession or sin?
Honestly, I feel like 2 things. One, it's for the most part what we know,
Mhm.
right? And the second thing going along with what we know is just we have not been properly educated on it, right? And honestly, we only think that certain manifestations are demonic, right? So we look at your psychosis disorders, right? Which is going to be like if someone's struggling with schizophrenia or if someone has bipolar, even depression. Or anxiety, we look at certain disorders and we're going to say, okay, that's demonic. Yep, because that person is sad. That must be demonic right there. That person is hearing voices. That's demonic right there. Because we don't understand the brain, we don't understand chemicals, we don't understand
It's good.
how our brain actually works and how it functions, right? But we don't look at like, we were talking the other day about my 600-pound life, right? And when we think about obesity in the Black church, why aren't there deliverance services for that?
Come on
When a
now.
lot of people
Mhm.
who struggle with being overweight have eating disorders,
Yeah.
right? A lot of us use food for comfort, but we don't really hear sermons or deliverance on, hey, if you're overweight, you need to come to the altar and get deliverance now. No,
Mhm.
we hear if you're depressed,
Right.
we hear if you're hearing voices and things like that. And so we've deemed those as no, that's demonic. But there are so many disorders that we're just unaware of if you're not in that field, and we pick and choose just due to a lack of understanding and education. And so when I say it's all we know from the spiritual side,
Yeah.
now let's go back in time. We were denied access,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
to the understanding behind mental health, right? We didn't know. And so we knew God, we knew spiritual things,
Right.
and that's what we did. So everything was, if you struggling with this or that, you need to get delivered.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
all
true.
we knew.
That's true.
That's all we
Everything
knew.
you need to be delivered for everything. In our church, you need to be delivered for everything. You need to be delivered from the way you dress, everything you did
Yep.
was sin, and so we went through a lot with that.
Mhm.
But I believe we've done. I believe we. Let me say it right. I believe we kind of done a disservice to people, especially when they put that type of trust into us,
Yeah.
and everything's a demon. I've been in churches where you could tell it's a mental that they're having a mental health breakdown right
Mhm.
now, and all you hear is get the bucket, and they praying for them.
Oh,
And
not get the
yeah, we
bucket.
grew up off get the everybody grew up off get the bucket.
But I think too, it's just like if you don't have the understanding beyond that,
Yeah,
right? So as a
yeah.
pastor, and I feel like a lot has been placed on you guys
Mhm,
to be therapists,
mhm,
right? To be able to diagnose and to be counselors and say, okay, well, this is how you need to do it. This is what needs to happen next. And so if that training and that education piece is not there,
right.
and all you know is deliverance, that's what you're gonna say.
Yep.
And so I don't even think that, while I agree with you that I think it's we have done a disservice, I don't think it's been intentionally on everyone's part. I
Right.
think that's all that.
It's just ignorance, lack of
Yeah,
knowledge. We don't know.
absolutely.
And if we don't know how to handle something, especially, a lot of people fear the unknown. A lot of pastors don't
That
know how to deal.
part.
If you come down to the altar and you start acting
That
crazy and
part.
and you really having a psychotic episode, or you really losing something going on in your mind,
Mhm.
all we know is this is the demon. This is a demon. I mean, you laugh too hard, we call that a demon. So, the Black church, we've always I feel we fumbled the ball a lot on that. And I know people may be upset if we had this conversation, but it really need to be had. Why? Let me ask you this: why are we putting emphasis on a Black church? Why are we putting emphasis on the Black church?
Well, because I do feel like we're behind. right? So if you look at from the counseling space, white people, they've been going to counseling for a long time. And they talk about it with their friends. It's casual conversation. You could be at lunch and someone, they'll be talking like, "Yeah, so I was talking to my therapist the other day." Whereas Black people, we're like, that's private, and we associate it with shame and guilt and people being in your business. So it's not talked about as much. So that's why we're like, now there needs to be a focus because we need it. There's studies that show that there's over 5 million of us right now.
Gee.
5 million, over 5 million Black people that are struggling right now with our mental health. And over 58% of us, we don't go get no help. Exactly what you said about we'll go to our pastors. There was a study done that showed that we're more likely to get help if our pastors tell us to.
Wow.
But if our pastors are not pro mental health or pro going to see a therapist, then we won't go.
Wow.
So if they don't tell us or they're against it, then we'll keep struggling. And it was a thought I had too about the deliverance piece, right? I've always thought that even after deliverance services, there should always be teaching. And the reason why I say that is because let's say it is something demonic, or let's say, it's something spiritual. You get delivered. If you don't have the proper thought process and you don't know how to change patterns of behavior, you're gonna go
you
right back to that thing.
Yep, you go right back.
And so I used to say that all the time, like, when going to counseling, people always think like you have to be crazy, you got to be out of your mind. And it's like, no, the scripture tells us to take captive our thoughts, right? That set itself against the knowledge of Christ. And so a lot of times our experiences, the things we've gone through, our trauma, it tells us lies about who we are, ourselves. And those lies are the thoughts that then produce certain emotions. Those emotions produce behaviors. And now we have ourselves in a cycle. And so if you go down to the altar because you're depressed, somebody lays hands on you and you feel good, you shout, you scream, you cry, you go home. But if you never change your thought process, if you never take captive those thoughts and replace them, you're going to go right back to that same space because you don't know how to think properly.
That's right.
Your mind hasn't been transformed and renewed.
Right.
And so I feel like from the spiritual side, while we preach this aspect, we haven't really taught people what does it look like to have a transformed and renewed mind. How do I renew my mind? What does it look like? How do I take the scripture and address the core beliefs that I have about myself and the place I operate from? The core beliefs I take into my relationships, all these things that end up causing more stress and more trauma and more depression. And so I can talk about that all day.
But our culture is funny because our culture, we especially the men of our culture, we don't like counseling. We don't. I mean,
why do you think that is? Though?
If
from your perspective,
if a man pride, we don't. Men being the head, especially the Black man, we feel like we the head, and if you say, hey, with our wives, for instance, you say, hey, let's go get counseling. The first thing we're gonna do is I ain't gonna get no counseling. I ain't about to tell nobody my business, and like remember the old skit on Dave Chappelle when they switched places with the white woman and she was telling all the counselor everything and he had the cigarette on. He was looking at her. He said, go get in the car. I'll never forgive you for this. Because we feel like, we don't want to sit down and tell our business.
Feel exposed.
Yeah. And I think that's a problem with not just the men. I mean, it's mostly with the men, but that's a problem with Black people, period. When I mention that most Black people would trust their clergy before your general medical or health care provider, I believe that one of the issues in that, the reasons, is distrust in the system.
Absolutely.
There are many things that I believe contribute to that distrust. Remember the Tuskegee experiment. Remember that?
Yep.
Then traditionally, due to racial discrimination, we didn't always have access to psychiatric care or mental health services. So African Americans, Black people, we kind of had to push through our problems and overcome mental health challenges on our own. Matter of fact, when I was reading, I saw a study that said, like in the 30s or 40s in New York City, the Department of Health Center didn't even think Black people had mental health issues. So there was no services available because they didn't even think we had mental health issues. And then when we finally got a chance to get help for these mental health issues, we were overdiagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety disorder, when we didn't really have those type of issues. So I believe that created a distrust. So let me ask you this. What are some of the ways that we can get our people, the Black people, to trust in the professional system again?
So I had a thought too while you were saying that about the distrust aspect, but I do want to come back to that. I think we're taught distrust in the system from childhood. Because literally when I say this, everybody can finish it. What goes on in this house, stays in his house, right? Like we all grew up in the same house.
That's right.
We all know like that's a
That's right.
cultural thing,
Right,
right?
right.
So we're taught that we are taught to keep our business to ourselves. We are taught to keep people, keep the system out of our business, and sometimes rightly so.
Mhm.
But what happens when the house is dysfunctional? What happens when the people in the house are hurting you? What happens, when you need to get out of the house? So as far as getting us to a space where we do trust the system, I think that one of the transitions that I've seen, and we're still working on it,
Mhm.
is there are now more Black people going into the field, right?
Okay,
There are
got it.
now more Black
Yeah,
Christians going into the field. There are
yeah.
now more Black men
Mhm.
going into the field. And a lot of times, not all the time, but sometimes Black men feel more comfortable talking to another Black man versus sitting in front of a white woman or sitting in front of a white man because they just feel like, what's already understood ain't got to be explained. So
Right,
it's like
right,
you
yeah,
already know. I don't have to explain my cultural experiences or
yeah.
certain things that I was taught because we're from the same
We
culture
feel
and
like
we
you can
get it.
identify with us.
You can
Like going to a
identify.
church, you kind of want to see your kind in leadership. You want to see your kind doing
Yep.
something. People are attracted to where they see themselves.
So I think that us becoming aware that, hey, there are Black therapists, hey, there are Black Christian therapists, there are people who come from similar experiences and backgrounds that we do. And so to know that these people are in the field, they have the education, they're equipped, and they're like us.
Mhm.
I feel like that helps to build trust a little bit. And also, too, just to be aware, everybody thinks when you hear the word social worker, oh, those people to come get your kids.
No, right.
And it's like, but
Yeah,
social workers do
in our
so
hood.
much more than
Yeah,
that,
in our
right? So,
hood they
like,
do.
you can go see a social worker for counseling and they ain't thinking about your kid. You know what
Right,
I'm saying? Like,
right.
but I just feel like we gotta destroy the stigma. We gotta start talking about it. We gotta start having conversations like we're having now. We gotta get people who have stories to write books.
Mhm.
So that there can be conversation. People got to be honest and say, like, yeah, I go to therapy. I still have a therapist to this day. And not because I'm crazy or anything like that, but because I recognize that there are areas of my life that need continued healing, or there may be a new situation that comes up. And so I think that when people who have influence, like pastors, like leaders, are able to say, yeah, I go to therapy, or yeah, I have somebody that I talk to, it it helps bring other people's guards down and
Right.
allows people to look at an example and say, man, I think the world of Pastor Kelker, I think the world of Dewan, like, and he goes to therapy or he went to therapy. Like, okay, maybe it is cool and maybe it is something that I should try. So, yeah, I think those are some of the ways that we can help restore that trust.
Yeah. I also think people sharing their story, sort of like
Absolutely.
what you're doing now, and people, because sometimes the person with mental health issues don't think they have mental health issues. We met a lot of
Most
people.
people
We've
don't
met a
think
lot
that
of
they
people.
do.
We've met a lot of people like that, and sometimes if we had more people that were honest and could share their
Mhm,
story or share their experience, maybe I can identify with
mhm,
that. Like, wow,
mhm,
I see somebody who has skin like me and they're saying what they went through is the same thing I went through, and they're calling it a mental health issue.
mhm.
I thought it was normal.
Oh, I mean, and when I say, just even in the counseling office, right? I would come across that all the time where, especially as Black people, we've had to learn how to just keep it moving,
Mhm.
so much so that a lot of us don't even realize we're depressed. Because
Right.
if you're not, because we think depression is crying all the time, staying in the bed.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us have a lot of anger. We're always irritated, and we don't even know that that can be a sign of depression or anxiety.
Mhm.
So we've walked around our whole lives just on edge and we think, oh, that's just my attitude. No, that's anxiety.
Right.
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 And so,
Right.
like, like you said, when people are able to share and realize that there are certain spaces and places and postures that we've operated in because we've had to survive
Right.
that are not normal.
Right.
They're not normal.
But there
They're
are
not
people who
healthy.
grew up, and like you said, there are people who've grown up and the whole family has mental health
Mhm.
issues. And if you're born into a family that has mental health issues, a lot of these behaviors you're gonna normalize them. You're gonna
Absolutely.
think. I've heard people say stuff like, "That's just the way my family is.
Mhm.
That's just the way we are." And they're identifying with mental health issues. That you mean all of y'all crazy? And it's possible because some family, hey,
Well, they make it a personality trait versus an unhealthy way of coping,
Exactly.
or
Exactly.
like, hey, no, that's not normal, you know
Exactly.
what I mean? Like, and so but you're right. Or even even grief, we don't talk a whole lot about grief as well, and so we're just like, oh, this happened, it is what it is, and we keep it moving.
Mhm.
But there's so many different components of that.
Yeah.
So definitely sharing our stories and knowing, like, hey, have you ever talked to anybody about that? Because that's not, because
Mhm.
when I tell you, I have heard some stuff, and a
Mhm.
lot of times people don't even realize, especially like, and I'm just thinking about some, again, just different experiences that I've had with people not realizing what rape is.
Yeah.
Right. I've had to have that
Wow.
conversation
Mhm.
several times because I myself didn't realize it
Got
either.
you.
When I was younger. And so having that conversation, like, wait a minute. So if I just tell somebody no and they continue, that's
Mhm.
rape. And you're like, yeah, and they're like, and people, I've literally been sitting with people where they've actually realized
Yeah.
in that moment that they were violated
Wow.
because they weren't aware. A
Wow.
lot of women think that you have to, or unless like that person beats you up, or unless they,
Right.
it's a stranger.
Right.
People think rape is, somebody gets you in an alley somewhere.
Right.
And it's like, no, rape often happens with someone
And
someone
trust.
that's you
Yeah.
trust. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
close to you.
Mhm.
And so I've sat with so many people, women and men, who are like, wow, I didn't even realize that that's
Yeah.
what that was.
And a lot of people do that. Even when you think about mental health, I've heard people say stuff like, "We just keep it real." No, y'all really just got mental issues, and then sometimes that's the problem
No,
with a
you're
lot of
impulsive. You don't
you
just
know,
keep it real.
right? You don't keep it real. Yeah, you. This is great, but a lot of us think that we just keeping it real, and that's what the problem is with mental health. And then when you transition it to the Black church, and that's why I'm so passionate about this thing that we're starting, because it's like when I think about the Black church, when I think about what I've experienced, and like I said, I don't have a problem with deliverance. We are a deliverance church. We're a deliverance
Absolutely.
church. I grew up in deliverance, and I've seen demons come out. Even going back to your point, even after a demon comes out, there still should be some type of counseling component after that,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people have demons and don't even know they have them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some of y'all gonna get turned off, like they talk about demons. They're real. They're
They
real.
are.
They're
Yes,
real.
they are.
And this ain't,
Yes, they are.
this ain't church, but we're gonna be honest with you. Demons is
Mm-hmm.
real and deliverance is real.
Yes, it is.
And but my issue is we have to be able to balance that thing out and
Mm-hmm.
decipher the difference as the church,
Mm-hmm.
because we do people a disservice when we're forcing them into something to get delivered from something that they don't need deliverance from.
Mm-hmm.
This just may need, and I don't want to, don't get mad at me. They just may need a pill
Hey, but you're right though.
or a shot
You're right.
or a straight jacket.
Nah.
No, I'm serious.
Depending on the
They make them for a
situation,
reason. No,
they
they make
might.
straight
But
jackets for a reason.
like when we were talking before, and I said that since when do demons bow to medication?
Come on,
Right.
come on.
And so there are people who are struggling with, let's say, schizophrenia, because that's the one everybody goes to the most. And there are some people who have schizophrenia who you would never know if they're taking their medication. You wouldn't see any behaviors that would let you know anything was off. They're not hearing any voices. So you mean to tell me? Because again, we always say if someone's hearing voices, that's demonic. When really we're not understanding how the brain works, and that
Right.
there can be drugs can damage your brain
Mhm.
to where it doesn't properly do what it's supposed to do, right? Because the reality is, if you understand the way the brain works, everybody hears voices. You can hear your own
Come
voice, and
on.
it's really your thoughts. But there's a part of your brain that functions properly to tell you, hey, that's your thoughts, right? So you don't get scared by your thoughts because that part of your brain works. Well, when you have damage to certain areas of the brain, then it there's a function that basically is not telling you that those are your own thoughts, and you hear them as outside of yourself when really it's your thoughts that you're hearing, but you're not aware of that, right?
Wow.
So there is medication then that can help fix that. So if that's demons, our Bible tells us that demons only bow to the name of Jesus, not
Right.
medication,
Yeah. So
right?
you fix now with
So
medication, then that shows you that it was.
thank you, right?
But see, in our culture, let's just be honest. Sometimes drugs do tear us up. Don't get me wrong. Drugs make you, you'll be on top 1 minute and doing your thing, and then next thing you know, let me get a 10 for 5, but loan me 3 because I only got 2. You can be messed up. But when it comes to our people, I'm sorry, I don't know why she said that. Pray for me. When it comes to our people, all right, and I'm sure you've seen this with our people. I ain't taking no medication. We have the parents saying, "Don't let them put don't people don't let them put you on no medication. Don't let them do." I mean, when I was in jail, I mean, we used to talk about the dudes that took Prozac, but they'll be calm when they took that Prozac. They
Mhm.
wouldn't act the way they
Mhm.
act before they took that. But one thing about our culture, we're advised, we're counseled not to let nobody put us on medication, and then if you get deep in the spiritual aspect of it, we start thinking everything is crazy. Like we are we attaching medication to the mark of the beast. We doing everything because we just lost as a church. How do we deal with that? Because we have a culture that we think we're anti-medication. We think that they're trying to make us crazy, or they're trying to make me crazy. I ain't crazy. They're trying to make me crazy. This medication gonna make me crazy. Well, how do we deal with that?
I mean, I balance
We
is
laughing, but
key,
it's serious,
right?
y'all. It's really serious. Okay.
But these are all things that we say.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm all about balance. Because there are some people who you would just do better um with medication, depending on the brain chemistry and things like that. And then there are other people. I'm gonna say this is what came to mind, and this I don't want to offend anybody. Some people's faith will allow them and get them to certain spaces of healing
Mhm.
that other people need medication for.
Yeah. What-
You
Yeah,
know what I
that's
mean
not
by that?
offensive. That's a true story.
You know what I'm saying?
That's good. That's a great point.
And yeah,
Just say it.
it
Just say
just
it.
it just
You go-
there are some people where depending on, and I don't want to say it from a standpoint of like, oh, you don't have enough faith, so you can't be healed without me. Like that's not what I'm not trying
Well,
to say
some
it like
people,
that, but
but
like,
say it like this: some people don't have enough faith. That's the
okay,
problem. Some people don't have enough faith to believe. Listen, and like I said, this ain't church, but he said, "Do you believe I can do this?" We needed the miracle for the boy.
right.
He said, "Yes, I believe you can." He said, "According to your faith, be it unto you."
Absolutely. So I'll and I don't, because I know there are some people watching that are like, they may have been told, you would be okay if you just had enough faith. So let me give it from my perspective with my own story, right? So
Mhm.
I was diagnosed with PTSD,
Okay.
right? Because of all the things that I've experienced. I would have nightmares, panic attacks, anxiety, all type of stuff, right? And so when I went to the doctor for sleep, I don't even remember the sleep disorder that they diagnosed me with, but they wanted to give me a medication. And they were like, okay, well, these different things have happened to you. So this is what it is. And for me, I understood where I was in my faith, that once I had a diagnosis or whatever that was, that I knew how to then apply scripture towards it, what to
Right.
do. I knew how to fight. I knew warfare, all of those things. So I personally chose not to take medication. Right. And so I began to learn about stress in my body and natural things that I could do, and having a certain sleep pattern, taking ashwagandha, which is a natural stress reliever.
Wow.
Like different things like that. And so I, have not had to take medication for any of the things that I've experienced. But I also understand where I'm at in my walk with Christ. And I'm a very disciplined person. So I put in a lot of work mentally and emotionally. And I do understand that everybody's not in that
Right.
space
Right.
to where they could do what I do, or able to function in the way that I'm able to function without medication. Does that make
Right.
sense?
And if you're not,
And that's okay.
it's okay. And then
There are other
get
methods.
some help, get some natural help. I think that's very, very important that we balance that out. So you're talking about balance, and this is what
Yes.
we need to educate ourselves on as Black people, as the Black church. Balance. You're not always everything's not gonna be spiritual. It's not some people simply don't have, and it's okay to say it. Some people don't have enough faith, to just believe God to help them. I mean, I'm just being
But you're
honest,
right, and I
you
think it's
know?
a belief system and it's a
Yeah.
thought process, and
Right.
that's what I'm trying to get at, is that I know that I've worked on my belief system enough, and I know how to apply what I believe to anything I'm thinking, feeling, or experiencing, and I know how to use that, and I've done it so much and so often that I don't need medication.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Look
there's
at it.
some people who do need medication because they're not in that space. And if you need medication, that's okay. And if you will function better with it, cool. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure that I over explained that because I
Right.
don't want anybody to
Right.
say, "Oh, so you're saying all you gotta do is have faith and you,"
No,
and
no,
it's a whole
that
process.
isn't for everybody.
Yeah,
That isn't for
it's
everybody.
definitely a
Some of y'all need
process.
medication. What camera we on?
And
What camera we on? Some of y'all
that's okay,
need
y'all.
Some of y'all
That's
need. I don't even know what
okay.
camera we on. It's
That's
seven.
okay.
Some of y'all need medication, and we just gonna be honest with you.
And
Just
that's
get.
okay.
And we're not. This is not an attack. We just being. We laughing, but it's real. Some people need medication, and if you do, I think you should be on it. All right. So look, I'll get your questions submitted, okay? Because we're going to be answering some of your questions here shortly. So get your questions submitted. Don't forget you're tuning into the BTP podcast. I'm gonna randomly pick 2 people who go to YouTube. If you're watching from YouTube, like, subscribe, and share. For the first time on YouTube, I'm going to bless you tonight with a $50 gift. Okay, $50. Send comment in the comment section with your cash app. I'm going to bless you with a $50 gift. Now, we see so much about mental health awareness, mental health awareness, mental health awareness. I mean, it's like all last year before, all I kept seeing is mental health awareness, and we're becoming more
Absolutely.
educated in it as a Black
Absolutely.
church. But I believe that if we had more resources for mental health training and skill building, I believe we could get a better grip on it. Okay.
Mhm, mhm.
Now, after I sat on that panel, I said to myself, it's time to go from awareness to action.
Come on.
And I told myself, I set out to find a way to get educated, to get educated myself,
Mhm.
and get the Black church educated in this area of mental health. This is why I said it was God's providential plan for us to meet, because I got a chance to sit on another panel last year. My buddy Lewis Pollard, the B3 Leadership Conference, and I sat on a panel there, and I talked a little bit about my passion to do this mental health thing. I had talked to a mental health judge in Akron already, and we were talking about starting some stuff and doing some stuff together. And then after I mentioned that, I met you guys personally. I met you guys before, but we actually talked this time, and you told me what you did, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, because I was looking for someone that we could
Mhm.
partner with to kind of start this initiative. So me and you talked a little bit, built relationship with you and your husband. We all got a chance to build relationship, and I believe it was God's plan for us to
Yes, it
put this
was.
thing together.
Mhm.
So we partnered, y'all, and we came up with the initiative called My Church, spelled MHI,
Mhm.
pronounced My Church. That was her idea, her brainchild. God dealt with her, and it was
God gave
kind
it
of
to me.
it was kind of awesome. So I'm gonna have you tell them a little bit. I'm super excited about this, but tell them a little bit about My Church and what this is, Courtney.
Yeah, so should I look in the
It don't matter.
it don't matter.
They gonna
Okay. All
get you.
right. So my church, the MHI stands for Mental Health Informed Church. And so what my church is going to be is a network of churches who are actually trained and equipped to meet the mental health needs of their communities. So with becoming a my church, right, there's going to be some criteria. The very first one is the leadership, the pastor and the leaders will have to be trained in an evidence based training that equips them with, hey, if someone in the community or in the church comes to them and they have a mental health concern, they'll know how to actually like identify it. Like, oh, okay, I see this is out of my lane. I see what's happening here. They'll know how to respond to it appropriately. Like, I feel like a lot of times people get hurt in the church because leadership may not have the words and it may not even be intentional, but don't have the right verbiage to respond to the person appropriately in a way that's helpful. But then the last thing that they'll know how to do in this training is they'll know how to actually refer them to a mental health practice that can help and that can support them. So that's the whole mission, right? Is to go on this, I almost want to say tour, like tour keeps coming to mind, but to go on like this tour of training churches to become mental health informed, to become my churches, to have their leadership trained, certified, accredited, nationally accredited and certified, and being able to respond to people who are having mental health challenges. The other thing that the criteria that they'll do is being able to meet with myself, who again I'm a licensed professional counselor, and just kind of sit down and talk and see what the mental health needs of the church are, and then of course getting the people trained. And so I think that this is so important.
Mhm.
It's so important. Number one, because we need it, right? The studies already show, stats already show that we out here, we struggling. We on the struggle bus. The struggle is real, and we don't know how to connect to the resources. But also, too, a lot of pastors are experiencing burnout. They're
Yeah.
trying to deal with their own mental health
Mhm,
issues and then trying to deal with the mental health issues of their people, especially if you have a large congregation. Can you imagine trying to deal with and not having the proper education and tools and resources?
That's why we get in the bucket.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's easier, right? Grab the
It's easier to
bucket
just get the bucket, man,
versus
or put them out.
yeah, because they don't know, the
Right,
understanding
right.
is not there. And so by becoming a My Church, by getting your church trained and equipped, it takes the burden off of the pastor to have to be the therapist for the whole church
Yep.
and trying to figure out and navigate and who needs this and who needs what. That's a lot. The pastor should be able to focus on his or her own mental health needs and making sure they're in a good space. And then when people come to them, instead of trying to put on a clinical hat and figure it out, they should be able to have resources and places that they're connected with, people that they trust, that they can send their people to and know that they're going to get the help and support they need. So that's the whole concept, that we came up with behind My Church. And we want people to know where My Churches are.
Yeah.
Right. Because
We
we
want
want people to
you
know.
to have, after you complete this program, and we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna tell you more about it, and we'll have some promos going out to where you can. She's gonna do some presentations for churches, so you can kind of get a feel for what we're doing. We're in this because we want you to be educated. We want the Black church to be educated. We're
Absolutely.
going from awareness to action.
Come on.
We want to. We can't. We know we're not sitting here thinking that we can solve it all, but we can play our part. Just a small piece into addressing this issue of mental health and dealing with this issue of mental health. So we're doing our part with My Church, and we want everybody to get involved who can. We believe that my face all greasy. I don't know what's going on. That's Vaseline or something. I look greasy on here, but anyway, if I look greasy, y'all don't talk about me. But anyway, I don't know. I got issues, but we want y'all to really get involved with this thing because we believe that this is a great opportunity for us to educate ourselves. I'm tired of churches not being able to identify what's going on. And it usually happens in the Black church because we're a little behind in this area. And so this is just our small part of saying, hey, we want you to become a My Church. In other words, we want you to get mentally health informed. We want you to know what you're dealing with. When people trust you, pastor, and they come to you, pastor, because they trust you more than the psychologist or the therapist, or because they trust you that much, we want you to be able to refer the right way. If you can't handle this, we want to give you an outlet to be able to say, this is one thing we can do. This is just, we're going to refer you to these people. We're going to refer you to this person and help you. This program is going to help you identify, like she said, because that's the problem. Identifying. We can't properly diagnose what's going on with our people. So this training is really going to help you. And what we're going to do after you complete this training, you're going to get a plaque that you're going to be able to put up like a seal that says we are a My Church. We are a My Church. We are a church that's mentally health informed. You're going to be able to get up to 30 people, right? To be certified in mental health first aid. And that means you're going to know what you're doing. You're going to know what you're seeing. You're going to know how to deal with these people. So I'm super excited about that. And with that being said, get your questions in real quick, because we're going to answer questions right after I say this next thing. So get your questions ready. We're going to answer your questions real quick because we want to go eat. Okay. So look, I'm excited because this Saturday, something's going to happen. Tell them, Courtney, what's happening this Saturday, March 25th.
So this Saturday, Burning Bush Church is going to be the first church to become a My Church. They are going through their mental health first aid training. This Saturday is going down. I'm super excited about it. We are going to be certifying 30 of their leaders in mental health first aid. So
if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook and you go to Burning Bush, you better put some happy emojis in there. Shake your hand because we're about to be mentally health informed, and some of y'all is going we gonna deal with you, but I'm excited.
And the thing about being mental health First Aid Certified. This is a certification that it's a real credential.
Yeah.
Like it's legit. It is accredited by the National Council for Well-being, and so it transfers from state to state. Like this will be a national accreditation, and it's good for 3 years. It's something that you can write on your resume, and so it's something you need to have. A lot of times, jobs are looking for people if you want to get promoted in leadership, people who are mental health informed. And so we're going to be at Burning Bush on Saturday. We are training the leadership. We are teaching them how to identify, respond, and support someone who may be having a mental health challenge. The training, it is, several hours, but it's super interactive. It is not a boring training. It is not a training where I'll just be standing up there and just teaching and lecturing. Nope. They are going to be diving in. They're going to be looking at real life scenarios. We got the chart paper, the sticky notes, like role playing videos. It's super interactive, and they are actually going to leave informed. They have to take a test and everything. So this is not just a little 30-minute,
Mm-hmm.
here's a little bit of information about mental health. No, they will be trained and fully equipped to identify, respond, and support someone who may be having a mental health challenge.
And pastors, this is very important because I need you to get this. We partner with this initiative, but I'm literally investing into my people to go through this. Okay, it's an investment that you want to do for your people. You want people to be trained. You want people to. You're going to want to be a My Church. We're going to make sure that everybody wants to be a My Church, and we have the awesome opportunity to be the Genesis class of it. We're going to be the first church to go through it, and I'm super excited because it's an investment that's worth it. Because ultimately, I think God will bless us because the lives that's going to be touched by this program is something that I believe your church needs. And I don't know, there's other things out there that people can do, but we're only talking about My Church. It's other things that people are doing, but we're only talking about My Church, something that God put on our heart to do that's going to help the Black church. So get involved, get involved, get involved. It's going to be awesome. You'll see footage and promos after we actually have the class that we're going to release to kind of show you how the class went. We're super excited. It's something that I believe is going to really help us figure this thing out or get a grip on this thing, so at least we can help a few. The goal is to help somebody, and if we can help somebody, if I believe this is God's doing, and I believe He's going to bless it, He's going to touch it, and I believe a lot of people is going to be informed, mentally health informed by this thing. Okay, so we super excited. This Saturday we going hard. It's a 4-hour class, right? 4 or 5 hour
It's
class.
5.5 hours.
5.5 hours. It's not bad. We're gonna feed them lunch. We're gonna do pastors. If you guys want to come and watch this class, if pastors want to come in and see how the class goes for your congregation, I'm gonna welcome you. That's something, I ain't tell Courtney that, but we just gonna welcome you. It just came off the top of my head. But if you want to come, Pastor, if you want to come, don't bring 30 of your members and think you're gonna get licensed. That ain't gonna happen. But if you want to come and look at the class and see for yourself what's going to take place, and then I believe that'll help you make a decision on if you want to become a My Church. Because it's a great class. I'm going to feed you lunch. I'm going to feed my people lunch. You can kind of see and get a picture of how we do everything, so that you can actually go through it with your church. So if you want to come, it's going to be Saturday at Burning Bush Church, 131 South House Street at 10 o'clock. If you're a pastor, please just reach out to us and tell us you're going to be in attendance. You can just come you don't have to stay the whole time. Just come look at it and see how it goes, and you'll get a chance to see how we do this thing. Now it's new, so it's going to be some stuff we have to learn through this thing. I mean, it's going to be great. But I think it's gonna get better and better the more we do it, and the more, so it may be some things that we don't do this class that when you do it, it'll be added some good things. So I'm excited about this thing. So we want y'all to get excited about My Church, and let's do this real quick. Like, share, and subscribe. But we're going to take some questions real quick. I seen one question already that we probably need to answer right away. But let's go ahead and deal with these questions. If you can throw them up, you can ask me. Let's deal with the first one. All right. How much resistance do you think you'll receive from the Black church? I don't know if I don't know. That's an interesting question. We don't know. I mean, we can't really. We just gave you an example of how we are as Black people, And so when you look at the black church, I mean, it all depends on what angle you're asking that question. Because if you be honest, some we may get resistance from some pastors, because some pastors feel like if they didn't initiate it, they ain't gonna be a part of it. So that's a true story. So we may get resistance from pastors. I'm sure we're gonna get some of that. But some of the people in the church, I think they'll follow the lead of their leader.
Absolutely.
So
they
if the
will.
pastors are on board to educate their church, listen, this is only helping our church. This is helping our members. This is helping us deal with this issue of mental health that's becoming more and more prevalent in the black church. We're seeing more episodes of mental health in the black church, more than we've ever seen. Listen, y'all, when y'all see and hear about these church shootings and all that type of stuff, now that don't happen that much in the black church, man. Lord, we don't want it to, but listen, that's mental health. Those are mental health issues.
Well, or even the pastors that are struggling behind closed doors.
Right. Suicide.
So, yeah, I mean, in affairs and all kinds of stuff. And so, honestly, I feel like our focus isn't resistance. Our focus is people who want to be mentally health informed.
Right.
And I feel like that's where our energy is going to go. So I'm sure there are going to be pastors or churches who may not agree with what we're doing. And then there's going to be some that are like, sign me up today. I'm ready. I want to get my people in. And that's where our focus is.
So how much resistance we gonna get? We don't know, but we know we're gonna get something. I'm sure we got resistance on this podcast. So we just got to deal with it. But we have a demographic of people that we believe God wants to touch and wants to bless with this opportunity. Especially if it's a God-given opportunity. I believe he's gonna get the glory out of it, and people will be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Do you think medication until you get your faith together is a good idea? Because for me, if I take medication, I feel like I've officially said God can't fix me.
That's good.
Oh,
that's good.
So first, I'm going to say I'm not going to recommend or not recommend medication until you have sat with a licensed professional and gone through a clinical mental health assessment. Because saying 1 minute I'm on top, the next minute I'm not, that can mean completely different things, right? That may mean something not as intense as bipolar, or that may mean something as intense as bipolar, right? So I'm not going to say whether you should or shouldn't take medication. I would leave that up to you and your clinician, your therapist, when you guys have that conversation. And it is something you can pray about. You can actually ask God if medication is a route that he wants to use for healing. A lot of times we limit the way that God can move, and we think that he can only heal us through the altar. And for a lot of people, the altar is the beginning, because there's a whole process that comes after that. So if you do decide the medication is best for you, or if God reveals that to you, you are absolutely not saying that he can't fix it. Also know too that just because you take medication doesn't mean you'll take medication for the rest of your life. God can heal you to a point where you take it temporarily and for a season, and then you're weaned off of it, or you may have to take it for long term. Either way it goes, if that's the route that God chooses to heal you, there's nothing wrong with that, and it doesn't mean anything bad about you as a Christian. And you can be a Christian that also takes medication.
And don't forget, some medication is, some of this stuff. God touched the minds of these scientists and doctors to come up with these medications that can help you. So either way it go, whether it's healing through spiritually or naturally, it's still healing. It's still you're still better. Not all medication work for all people. So if it works for you, then you can still consider it God's doing. If it works for you and it helps you get better, that's still God's doing. So definitely.
Something just came to mind. You said that. I feel like we never ask these questions or feel that guilt or condemnation when it comes to taking Tylenol or aspirin.
Come on, yeah.
Right. So we're okay with that for a headache. Right. So it's okay to trust in Tylenol to fix a headache, but it's not okay to trust in Prozac to help combat depression, or so I think it's interesting that
because we get a little embarrassed. We talked about it before. As a culture, we get a little bit embarrassed. We don't want people to know we're taking, and nobody has to know you're taking medication. Put your medication in a Tylenol bottle, and just be like, I'm taking my medication. Saying if you're embarrassed about the look,
with the type of medication, you have to take it daily. And so somebody might be looking like, you take a Tylenol every single day?
I take it every 4 hours and I feel better every time I take Yeah, but no, it's you listen. If you got to take medication, take it.
Yeah,
Take it. It's
absolutely.
very important that you're better, and that's the main thing. And like you said, some people can just believe God and it can change it. And listen, if you have to take a medication for what you're dealing with, that don't even mean you don't have faith.
Right.
That doesn't mean you don't have faith. That just simply means you have to take medication. Let's not, you know, you hear her. She's a very spiritual woman. She's talking about her faith, but don't think you have to be like that way.
Right.
Let me get my faith up so I don't got to take medication. No, it don't mean you don't have faith. You got to take medication. It just simply means maybe God may not choose to heal you. And I know that's a sensitive subject for some people. Why would God not? Some people he don't, and some people he do. He even says that in the Bible. Some people he may not choose to deal with you that way as far as faith and healing spiritually. He may want you to seriously take a pill and just do it that way and still trust him, still believe in him, still praise him, still love him and do all that, but just take the pill.
And everybody's process is different.
Mhm.
I shared my story just from a place of transparency, just to say where I'm at and to let people know I've struggled with some of the same things. But just because my process looks a certain way,
Mhm.
my process is not the standard.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like everybody's process and what God takes you through or allows you to go through, or how your healing comes, doesn't have to look like the next person's.
Right. And some people may take what you said and their faith is activated and they may be the same way, but some people won't.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. So just long as you're balancing it out and you're prayerful about it and you trust in God through it, it's okay to take a pill.
Amen.
I hope we said that right. I hope you got that.
Will your teaching include mental health when it comes to children and teens as well, or is it just adults?
So this particular training is teaching adults how to respond to other adults. There is a whole separate training that teaches adults how to respond to children, and also there's a training that teaches children how to respond to children or teenagers how to
Good.
respond to their teenagers. But this one that we are focusing on for my church and for this Saturday is just adults teaching other adults, or teaching adults how to respond to other adults.
But you're going to learn things that you can actually help. That's the whole thing, identifying, and you're going to learn things that you can use in your home, even dealing with kids, right?
Mhm.
And dealing with other people. You can learn things that you can teach all the way around. You're going to learn to identify mental health, whether it's a child or not, right? If,
Yeah.
I'm right.
Well, yeah, and it's something that our counseling practice, we also offer additional workshops, and that's one of them that we offer is teaching parents trauma informed parenting. How do I identify if my child is going through a mental health struggle, or if they have experienced some type of trauma? What do I say to them? How do I respond to them? So we do have workshops on that, but it's separate from what we're doing with my church.
And let me say this also. Suppose you're not connected, you're watching this, you're not connected to a church, or your church don't go through it and you just want to do it personally. Courtney's going to give you her information before we leave, and you'll be able to reach out to her and get this training personally. You'll be able to get this training. She's going to do it for the community. She's going to do it in a lot of places. It won't have nothing to do with my church. It'll be the same training. You can get the same credentials, but it's not going to be connected to my church. It's going to be her own personal thing. She's a licensed professional counselor with her own company, and you'll be able to experience that. And you'll be able to do it. Don't think, oh, it's going to cost a whole bunch of money. You'll trust me. You'll be able to do it. It's going to be very simple for you guys. But if you're not connected to church and you're watching this, ours won't be open to public. It's just for our leaders, because we're going to do 30 a class. So it's open to just our leaders. But if you're interested in taking this and getting certified and everything you need, you can talk to you'll get her credentials and you can go through this on your own. You can go through this personally and she'll deal with you right on the spot. Okay.
If there are other churches other than the Black church that would be interested in getting credentials, would it be open to that demographic as well?
Yes, yes. We're just emphasizing the Black church because we are the ones who I believe the majority of Black churches are we're a little behind schedule as far as mental health in the Black church. We're a
We
little
are.
behind schedule. We're a little uninformed, and so especially our charismatic churches, it almost seems like, and I don't want to say this to sound crazy, but it seems like the white churches are already equipped with some of these things, because they do counseling, and they do counseling before it'll be a demon and they'll be trying to counsel it. So some people, it's almost the opposite. I'm just being honest. But
they are more advanced.
yeah,
But
yeah,
and some,
yeah,
they some
yeah,
churches, some white churches actually
yeah.
have counseling practices in their church.
Yeah.
So I've been a part of that as well. So but the training itself is open to any church,
Yeah.
any organization,
Yeah.
even if you're not a church but you're a ministry,
Yeah.
or you have a secular organization.
Mhm.
What we're doing with my church is that's just a little bit different. But yes, there will
It's
be
geared
community
towards the black
trainings.
church,
It's geared
not
towards the black
because
church.
not saying you can't be a white church and be in my church. You could be any type of church and be in my church. We're just gearing it towards the black church because we believe that's the area that needs most of the help and being mentally health informed. Okay. All right, that's it. That's everybody. Okay. Well, that's all the huh? Oh, so okay, we got another question. You want to just ask it and then you put it on the screen real quick? Yeah, what's the question? We missed one. Okay, say it again. Well, I mean, if you pray, is that you gonna put that on there so they can see it? Okay. All right. So how do you tell the difference? How do you differentiate between the mental health and now? That's something that's spiritual. Okay. Distinguishing the difference between a demon and someone who's dealing with mental health. If you're in the area of, if you operate in the area of deliverance, or you've been in the area of deliverance, or you come from a deliverance church, you know when something spiritual is happening. You can tell when it's actually a demon. Now, some people can have a demon and have some mental stuff going on, and that's when you start talking more spiritual, word of knowledge, discernment.
Yep.
I would almost have to say you have to know about spiritual deliverance
Mm-hmm.
to be able to decipher the difference.
Yep.
Because it's the area that we're in. It's been times where I've been praying for people who thought they had a demon, and I didn't feel authority to deal with a demon. I felt this was something else. This was mental, and I didn't pray that way. I didn't pray, hey, come out of them, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because so it's almost like you have to, I can only answer this from a spiritual aspect. You can handle it from but it's almost like you have to know when something's happening. You have to be spiritual to know what's happening spiritually. You can't just say, because from the outside looking in, if you're not in tune, you won't know the difference between mental health and a demon. You might just be like, okay, I don't know what that is. It's just it all looks crazy to me. But in order to be able to tell the difference, I hope I'm answering this the right way. In order to be able to tell the difference, you got to be spiritual. You gotta know what's going on in the spirit realm to diagnose the difference. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that you have to have knowledge about both, right? So I think that if you have the mental health piece knowledge wise, but then you also have deliverance training and understanding and discernment, exactly what you said, that God will reveal to you, if this is something deeper, if this is, like you said, a demon or a spiritual thing that you need to go after. And one instance I'm thinking about is, I remember I was talking to someone who had who was being faced with charges being pressed against them because they were being charged with murder. And when talking about it, they were laughing, right? So someone may say from a spiritual spot, like, oh, that's demonic, that's a demon. And really come to find out that was that person's coping skill. So sometimes when people are uncomfortable or they're scared, they laugh. And it wasn't like this loud, but it wasn't because there was no remorse or there was no, and further conversation showed that there was, but that person was actually very scared. And their coping skill, which is not uncommon, but if you're aware of kind of mental health pieces and different coping skills that you might not think about, then it was, clear to see, like, okay, like, no, this person does feel bad. And they were able to admit they felt bad, but they, were scared to know what else to do. And that was the response. But they didn't find it funny. You know what I mean? Like I said, it sounds weird, but in a clinical space, it's like something that would be understanding and having that knowledge. So definitely discernment and education on both sides.
That's what I love about the class that we're having, the class that you're having. That's what I love about your situation. You're a licensed therapist, but you're also saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, fire baptized. So we believe that this program is going to give you the proper balance, because whenever you're dealing with something like this, from the outside looking in, it's very difficult to tell the difference,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's where the church has been misinformed. That's where we've had the issue. The church can't tell the difference. When in the Bible it says when the boy had a lunatic spirit, he was cutting himself. We know they were suicidal spirits because as soon as they jumped out of him, they went into pigs. And what's the first thing the pigs did? They committed
Mhm.
suicide.
Mhm.
So he was cutting himself. So we know he was dealing with suicidal spirits. But from the outside looking in, some people just thought he was crazy.
Mhm. Mhm.
But see, Jesus comes upon the scene and the demons act up.
Well, and he didn't respond to natural measures because they were
Exactly.
trying to hold him and change and stuff, and he was
They
too
breaking the
strong for him.
chains.
So
Yeah.
that's another way to know too. Like there's that response to natural
Mhm.
remedies doesn't work.
Don't work. So you have to be in a place to kind of diagnose this thing. That's what I love about this training. She's going to give you both sides of it, to the best of our ability. We're going to give you both sides of it to be able to distinguish and discern the two, discern the difference between the two. So that's a good thing. And I think you're going to be blessed by it. Any more questions? Any more questions? All right, this is one of my quicker podcasts. I'm excited about this. We are excited again because we are starting my church, and I believe it's going to be a blessing to the body of Christ. Again, Sister Courtney, I want to thank you for
Thank you
hanging
for
out with me
having
tonight
me.
and even partnering with me and believing
Thank
enough in the
you.
vision and helping me bring this thing to pass. And I know it was a God given thing because you popped up right in the time where it was just time to do this and to have someone like yourself who have the credentials as well as the spiritual side of it. It's a blessing from God. So I really appreciate your faith and trust and partnering in this thing. So tell the people real quick how to get in touch with you so they can know everyone who needs to talk to you outside of this podcast and outside of my
Yeah.
church, let them know how to get in touch
So
with
I'm
you.
gonna share two things. One, if you were watching tonight, whether you commented or asked a question or not, and you heard something just that you felt personally, just kind of reached out to you. I would definitely encourage you if you are looking for a Christian therapist, if you're looking for a Black therapist, to visit our website at www.healingcarecounseling.com. And you can go right on there and see the different types of sessions that we offer. You can be anywhere in the state of Ohio and receive one of our sessions. You can do it virtually, you can come in person. We do accept insurance, care source, Medicaid, all of those things. And so if you were listening tonight and you're like, man, I really need to talk to someone, reach out to us. And then if you are interested in becoming a My Church or learning more about the training, you can also go to that same website at www.healingcarecounseling.com and fill out our contact form. Just let us know that you watched the podcast tonight, the Beyond the Platform podcast, and that you're interested in learning more. And we'll reach out to you, we'll connect with you, share more information if you want to schedule a presentation, and we can talk more details about that as well. You can also follow me on Instagram at Courtney, Courtney, the letter N. I almost said as in Nancy, but my middle name is Noel. So I'm going to say as in Noel, Hauser, Hauser. That's my Instagram handle. You can follow me on there. I always post just different updates about the different things I'm doing in the community. But you can stay connected with me there. You can also learn more about trainings and workshops, all of that stuff. I keep my Instagram pretty up to date. So you can follow me there or you can reach out to us on the website.
All right. All right. So make sure you do that. And don't forget to get this book. Let's talk about this book one more time. From Victim to Survivor by Sister Courtney Hauser. It's on Amazon, all platforms, right?
Yep, it's on Amazon.
On Amazon. Go get this book off Amazon so you can read her story, because what I'm gonna do, we're gonna have her back to talk about this, talk more in depth about this. I'm her and a few others that I believe has some awesome stories. We're gonna have them come back to talk about this. We're gonna have them come back to talk about this because it's something that I think it could be a blessing to a lot of people. So we're excited. We're excited tonight, and again, pray for us. We're going to be the first church class to go through to become a My Church. So I'm excited about that. So keep us in your prayers. All right, and everybody, listen, we're praying for you. We believe in God for you. If and don't hesitate to reach out to Courtney or myself. If you have some questions outside of this, don't hesitate to reach out, because we're here for you. We're here. We've had some life experiences to where we've had you good. Go ahead, sister. We good. We've had some life experiences to where I believe that, God allows us to go through certain things so we can take years, tears, and fears off of people's lives. Our experiences we should be able to give you some advice that could take some years off of your life. You can get to this thing a little faster because we told you something or we taught you something. You might not have to shed that many tears if you can learn from some of the things we share tears about. And you might be able to do this without that much fear if we can tell you some of the things that helped us, some of the things that we overcame. And so, we believe our experiences can help somebody, and that's all we're trying to do. We're just trying to be a blessing to the body of Christ. We're trying to be a blessing to people. Okay, so I'm excited again. Y'all know I keep saying it because I am. So keep us in your prayers as we start this initiative. And pastors, we want you to become a My Church again. Don't forget to come. You can check us out. You can come this Saturday, starting at 10 o'clock, and be a part of our class and just see if it's something that you'll be interested in doing with your church as well. Okay. So anything you want to say before we get out of here? You want to tell somebody who's dealing with something right now, Courtney, somebody who's can identify with your story, and maybe they haven't gotten to the other side of it yet. They're identifying right now with what you've been through. They're going through right now what you've been through. You just got some encouraging words for them. Tell them something, or just whatever.
Absolutely. First, I want to let you know that you are not alone. You are not by yourself. I don't care how ugly, I don't care um how horrible your story is. I don't care how long ago it was, how deep it runs, how many people in your family have experienced it. You are not by yourself. You have a God that understands. And there are people, plenty of people like myself, who can identify with you, who relate to you. And I want to let you know that there is healing on the other side.
Yes.
Doesn't matter
yes.
what you have experienced,
Yes.
God absolutely can heal you, whether it's through medication, whether through therapy, whether through prayer, whether it be through deliverance, whether through all the above. But I am a living witness.
Yes.
I'm a living witness. Then God can heal you, completely restore you. But God often does healing through other people.
That's right.
And so you need to be connected. You need to have resources. You need to have support. But again, I am a living witness that there is healing on the other side of everything that
Yes.
you've experienced. And it does not have to be in the driver's seat of your life.
Come on. All right. Huh? Mention it again. Okay. All right. The book again is From Victim to Survivor by Courtney Hauser. Okay. Somebody else want to hear that? From Victim to Survivor by Courtney Hauser. All right. So make sure you go to Amazon and snatch it up. All right, snatch it up. Okay. All right. This that's it. That's the end of the podcast. So look, don't forget, like, share, and subscribe. I'm trying to get this thing off the ground. Like, share, and subscribe. If you're new, if you're new, and if you're a new subscriber on YouTube only, not Facebook. If you're a new subscriber on YouTube, okay, I want to build that community. If you're a new subscriber on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, comment your Cash App. We're going to bless 2 people with a $50 gift tonight. Okay, we'll put it on the page, and you'll know you got it, but we'll put it on the page as we always do, and let you know who received them. Okay, so we're excited again. Thank you for tuning in and just hanging out with us for the night, for an hour or so tonight. We pray that you were able to get something out of this. We pray that this could help you in some way. And we pray that this is something that you want to be connected to. We pray that this is just the beginning of something powerful that God is doing. Okay. So we are, again, we're excited to be here. Thank you again. Thank you,
for having
Pastor
me.
Mario, for hanging out with us. Lady K for being a director back there and make sure my makeup is all right. So I love you guys. We will talk soon. Again, you just watch Beyond the Platform podcast, the place we air out what many don't want to talk about. Be blessed.